Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of XenTegra on Air IGEL podcast series. I'm your host, Indrajeet Ghorpade, Director Solution Engineering with XenTegra Private Limited. And I have with me my friend John Moody, uh, Director Pre-Sales for UK and I and APAC with IGEL. Hey, hi, John. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Indrajeet. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Think what to talk today, right? So we
I know.
actually we actually gone through a couple of topics. Even like in our earlier last year episodes, we have covered majority of the things. Even we talked in last episode, we talked about IGEL rebranding,
Hmm.
right? And what exactly it is and why it is done, what is the intention behind it, and what is the strategy like ahead for this year. So
Did
we
you
have
get did you get the new T-shirt that we sent you with the new
no,
logo? Is it
no,
not?
no,
Is it
not it.
not? Oh, it must
Not
be on
yet.
its way.
No, I don't have. I have a like, old branding T-shirt. I don't have
Really?
any one.
When I come out and visit Indrajeet, I'll bring you a new one.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for that. I'll wait for your visit to India. Okay, so I think we talked a lot about the IGEL security, like the read-only OS and how IGEL OS is secured, and
Hmm.
like even the user experience with end user getting with IGEL. So even recently, I think even we discussed we touched base a bit, like how IGEL is trying to like invest or like IGEL is investing in their R&D for research and development for like to enhance the operating system or enhance the overall product.
Yeah.
I heard something about preventative security model. So
Yes.
just want to understand what exactly it is because we already talked about right. IGEL is a secure OS, like and it's a read-only OS. So what exactly this model is like, and what is behind this like overall preventative security which IGEL is doing. So just want to
Ex-
understand, and I think it will be even knowledgeable or helpful for our listeners to know more about it.
Okay. Yeah. No. Great. Fantastic. Thank you for setting that up. So, what is the IGEL Preventative Security Model? So, I think the first thing to say is it's not a new product from IGEL. What it is, though, is a framework, a way in which you're going to find how IGEL address those security concerns on the endpoint. Um, so you mentioned there that IGEL, we're moving. We are now considering ourselves to be a security company. Certainly from the feedback from customers and partners like yourself, we've had a lot of customers and partners view us in that way anyway. So I'd see the preventative security model being a way that you'll see IGEL talking around topics such as zero trust, right? And in general, the principle comes from this. So what we see is, last year alone, the sales of software as a service software hit 75% of all new software purchases. So, customers are going out there buying new applications. What they're generally not doing is going out and buying a new client server based app. They're subscribing effectively to a SaaS based app, and things like Workday, Concur, those kind of SaaS based solutions. um, we're seeing companies like Gartner talk around how DAS has brought a level of democracy to application virtualization and desktop virtualization, that DAS, whether that's through a third party, through an MSP, through something like Windows 365,
Yeah.
that's really making DAS accessible to everybody, right? So even your smaller customers now can spin up Windows 365 instances. They don't have to have complicated setups in able to do that. So really anybody can use DAS these days. And I think the other important fact here as well is Microsoft, for the first time during their earnings call, were mentioning AVD as a line item. Um, and
Yeah.
sales of AVD and Windows 365 went over $1 billion in the last 12 months. So really, we are at that point, right?
Yep.
So really the IGEL message is coming from this point is customers are adopting cloud first application strategies, right? An application strategy for the future. Why then, and this is the question that IGEL are asking, why then do we do this with an endpoint strategy from the past? Why are we, still installing large operating systems, many of which contain code that is, I'll give the Windows example here. Windows has Xbox code in it, for example. It has apps and code in there that's been there for years and years and years that users don't need. That's led to operating system bloat. So now, Windows is like, what is it, 64 gig now? And really, we sort of kind of ask that question of, just because that's what you've always done, why should you continue? And whilst we're adopting these new strategies around not only adopting SaaS applications, but also adopting application virtualization and DAS, okay, let's take a different approach and let's look at a different way of doing the desktop, if you like, of deploying that endpoint, of managing and securing that endpoint.
Yeah, yeah. So it is as you said, it is not a different product as such, but it is
No.
basically the change in strategy or change in looking at the things, right?
Yeah.
To make the OS more secure. So are there
Yeah.
any specific areas, right, on which IGEL is targeting to make this model successful or successfully delivered to the customers?
Yeah, let's take an example of an existing customer today, okay? And you guys will be working with these customers day in, day out. So the approach that everybody does and everybody has done for years is, we deploy an endpoint OS out to our end users. We then install agents to monitor it. We then deploy agents to detect issues, and then we deploy agents to remediate. We'll deploy agents to manage antivirus. We'll deploy agents to manage VPN. Agent after agent after agent after agent.
Yeah.
And typically what you see, and I don't know if your customer has experienced this, but the more layers of security you add, the more layers that you add on, user experience then declines. So the more you increase security, the worse user experience gets. So
Yeah.
users are
Yeah.
prevented from doing this. They are prevented from doing that. It's complicated. I can't access this. I have to connect to that before I can do, right?
Yeah.
And what we're saying at IGEL is actually you can have both. So you can be secure and you can have a great user experience at the same time. And that's really what the PSM model talks about. So, for example, we don't allow users to save data locally to their endpoint. Yeah, there is no need for a user to save data locally to their endpoint. If they're using DAS or application virtualization, they can use their OneDrive and their cloud-based storage. The
Yeah.
days of saving things locally to your laptop, that should be gone. So if we get rid of that, then you don't need your OS to be read and write. You can just be read only. So
Yeah.
again, part of the PSM we say at IGEL is your OS needs to be read only. So if any changes are made whilst the user is using, you reboot, you're back to a nice, clean, refreshed image, if you like. You can't, end user cannot make changes to that base OS config. Because we're read only, that also means that end users can't install their own applications. A big source of vulnerabilities and ransomware and phishing attacks is by users either, deliberately installing a piece of software that they want to use or clicking on a link in an email, and that installs code
Yeah.
that, starts emptying your address book, for example. So with the trusted application platform that we have on IGEL OS, the only apps that can be installed are ones from that an administrator has approved. So typically that's from the IGEL App Store,
Yeah.
or it's done through, if it's a custom piece of software that has only been installed by the admin. So users can't mistakenly install software that they may want to run, but they can't. So, you kind of enforce your zero trust networking principles just purely with those three things, right? Just purely the idea of users not saving data locally, being
Yeah.
read only, and can only, have approved IT applications.
Yeah.
we then start to look at user experience. So as an end user, when I don't know if you've had this experience yourself, but when I log on in the morning, that's one username and password. I then start accessing my SaaS applications. There's probably a username and password for each one of those. There's then usernames and passwords I use for my own personal apps, like my Facebook or my Instagram. There's another set of passwords there. I then get to all these other systems. I bet most people, I mean, I don't obviously, I'm very secure. But I bet most people just use the same password across all those applications,
Yeah.
right? Which is terrible. It's a dreadful idea. We should never do it, but I bet most people do. Um, so really to avoid that, what we look at is probably the fourth component, which is that single sign-on integration. So,
Yeah.
log on to your IGEL device using your, I don't know, your Entra ID credentials and have those credentials pass through to your other your other SaaS-based applications. So really, you've only got one username, password, and obviously a token to keep secure. And we fully integrate that with IGEL OS. That is a huge use case for us. We're not just about power on your IGEL device and connect to Citrix or connect to VMware or connect to AVD. We fully see a use case now, particularly with the adoption of SaaS apps, whereby maybe you're not using VDI or DAS at all, and you just need to provide your end users access to SaaS applications.
Yeah.
So as part of that use case, why not enforce single sign-on to those apps? Which I know the question then introduced was going to be, well, hey, what about collaboration? What about Teams? Right?
Yeah.
What about my WebEx? What about my Zoom? Well, you
Correct.
can do all that locally from IGEL OS, right? The next podcast I do with you, I'm going to do through my IGEL device. I'm on my MacBook today, but the next one we should record it, and I'll use Teams natively on IGEL OS, and that's really great. So actually, I can have access to my Office Online apps, I can access my SaaS applications, I can do single sign-on. At that point, I don't even need Windows, right?
Yeah.
I've got a nice gig 2 gig OS that's beautiful, that's clean, that's very simple to use, right? So if you've used Windows before, you use Mac OS or you've used Linux, you can use IGEL OS, right? We're not some radical different looking thing. We have a start button, we have icons on the desktop, we've got a taskbar. I mean, what else do you need, right?
Yeah.
I actually showed my girlfriend, my future wife, I actually showed her IGEL OS a couple of weeks ago. She's like, oh, she's using it instantly, right? And she's not IT at all. She's using it instantly. And it's like, oh, well, okay, John, is this what they're paying you to do now? And it's like, yeah. He goes, well, it's super easy. And yeah, great. That's how the world's meant to be, right? We don't have the annoying pop-ups. We don't have you need to update your Windows PC, shut down a reboot thing. We don't have any of that whatsoever. And we don't have the need to then connect to a VPN. So, you're reducing that number of agents. So we were maintaining that user experience, right? And if you do need to connect through to those Windows resources or your SaaS apps, then we're bringing that and harmonizing, bringing all that together. Equally, if you are only a DAS customer, so you only give your users a Citrix desktop or an AVD desktop, you can configure IGEL so you don't even see it. So
Yeah.
literally, we call it boot to X.
Okay.
So boot to whatever you like. So you can turn on your IGEL device and we just boot straight through to your Citrix session or your AVD session or your VMware Horizon session. You don't even see IGEL. Or
So
you can have the full desktop experience,
yeah. Yeah. So
right?
it is like even you call it or some people call it as kiosk mode, right? Where
Yeah,
it
yeah. I'm basically calling it boot to X because Microsoft came up with boot to Windows 365. And
okay.
I think the point I'm making here is, I mean, that's a great feature, Microsoft. That's, being able to boot from a Windows device to a remote Windows is a very clever thing. And I suppose what I'm saying is, with IGEL, it doesn't matter. If you're not using Windows 365, you can still have that boot to X, that kiosk mode experience, right?
Yeah.
Kiosk mode to me feels like a walk-up access kind of PC that has a use case, right? But I like that boot to X, that idea of regardless of the DAS solution I'm connecting to, I can instantly boot to it. And I think what's interesting is we do have customers who are migrating from one DAS provider to another. So maybe they're going Citrix to AVD or AVD to Citrix.
Yeah.
Is if they're in that migration phase of having to support both communities, again, IGEL can help with that transition. So as you migrate those people over to the other DAS provider or the other VDI provider, it's just a matter of moving those devices from within the IGEL management console to a different profile configuration.
Yeah.
And the next time they boot, they'll be then connected to that new environment. So you
Yeah.
can make migration as granular and as low a detail as you like, really. And I think there's some major benefits there to customers because, migrating is hard, right? It is a difficult project to do. You're emailing customers and somebody's going to get it wrong, and users don't want to be distracted by that, right? They want to get on and do their job, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what can we do as IT to help support those migrations? I think that's something that we do, really well, really well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so I think like the way I understood or like I have taken it is right. It is just the way, like, or it's a way to see like how the OS will be secure, and there'll be different approaches like which
Yeah.
Agile was already like following, but again there are like a few additional things, or like Agile is considering it in a like authentic way, and like even keep on adding few additional things, right now, as you said, right, even like booting, like the user cannot able to save the data, that is one thing. Then like even the access is restricted, or the applications like
Mhm.
admin only application access, then like single sign on. I think even multi-factor authentication integrations, right? Smart card authentication. There are a lot of these kind of things, right? IGEL is performing, or like IGEL is continuing with this particular initiative.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we still obviously innovate in those areas, but these are features that IGEL's always done, right? We
Yeah,
are continually innovating. You've seen that with OS 12 and the advancements that we're making with that. You're going to see some UI refreshes coming down the road to both the UMS console and also IGEL OS itself. And we continue innovating at pace with all of that. But this is kind of core of what IGEL has always done. I think the problem that IGEL has had is we've only, it's only the endpoint guys who really know us, right? It's the Citrix team, it's the VMware team. And traditionally it's, we've deployed Citrix or we've deployed AVD. We need some thin clients, right?
yeah,
They've looked at IGEL, right? And obviously we don't make hardware anymore. And really what IGEL want to talk to now is the CISO, the Chief Security Officer. And this is
yeah,
all language that the CISO understands. CISOs are interested. How do I prevent a cyber attack? How do I secure my organization's data? How do I secure patient data? How do I secure, um, everybody's now not working in an office, they're hybrid working. How do I secure the home office location? And really, that's what IGEL talks to very well is, look, you can enable all those things, right? You can secure your data. You can allow people to work from anywhere. You can still have a great user experience without having to deploy one of those legacy OSs out to the endpoints. You can get a cloud-first endpoint that allows your users to not only work locally. Let's be honest with that. We are very good at working locally with local apps, with SaaS-based applications, and also then connect through to those DAS and VDI solutions when I need to, and really build up and secure that last mile, which is where customers tend to struggle. So they'll invest in, great solutions like Zscaler, for doing that kind of whole, SaaS-based web app protection piece. But
yeah,
then the endpoint is the bit that is difficult. It's hard, and I think that's where IGEL finishes that last mile, if you like, where we complete that. At the end of the day, you need security needs to start with the endpoint, right? There's no point. You can have all the greatest security systems that money can buy, but as soon as the endpoint is compromised, then that's where, because that's the bit where that's where the bit where the person sits in front of, right? There's that old phrase about the problem exists between the keyboard and the chair. That's where the humans get involved with the IT. And if we're not securing that bit first, then, well, everything else starts to fall down like a stack of cards, I suppose. So yeah, that's kind of our view really is finish off that security model with the way that IGEL deploys and manages OSs.
Yeah, got it. So I think last couple of years back, right, IGEL was right like IGEL strategy to be a software only company, and which is now in like I think 1 or 2 years right now we can call IGEL as a software only
Yeah,
company.
yeah.
And this initiative PSM, right, specifically this model is I think like IGEL is focusing on to take, like as you said, right, IGEL is kind of like going to be a security company. So I think new path to or like new journey, or like I think I'll say new phase, right? IGEL want to like focus on a new area. IGEL want to focus on, and maybe like very soon will be like see that those all those initiatives like under this model, and then like we will proudly say that IGEL is a security company, not only an endpoint company.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly it, right? And that's what you're going to see a lot of that around the messaging at Disrupt this year. It's the thing that myself and my team are going out and talking to customers about. And do you know what? That is really resonating now. I was with a customer last week who knew us from old as a thin client company. And when we explained what IGEL is today, they were like, wow. And they're a secure government customer as well. So, security is absolutely, we weren't allowed to walk in the meeting with our mobile phones. We had to leave those outside. That's kind of the level of security we were talking about. And we absolutely hit their use case because they didn't want that ability to store data locally. They wanted that read-only OS, and then they wanted that on a choice of device that was up to them. So they didn't want to be tied to a particular vendor. And once we'd walked them through our capability, it was there was like absolutely, we're now starting proof of concept with that particular customer purely because of that PSM model that we were able to share with them. So yeah, it's absolutely resonating out there. And if you or your customers want to get in touch with us, we will happily come and demo and show it all off.
Yeah, I think it was a good stuff and a good conversation. At least we and our I and our listeners like even got that overall motive behind it, or what exactly it is, because there were a lot of question marks in like our listeners or customers' mind, right? What exactly it is? Is it a like specific product range, or like what exactly IGEL is doing it? So I think you already clarified that doubt, and I think it was a good conversation, and I think looking forward for many such conversations in our upcoming episodes. And I think with this, let's conclude. I think before concluding, do you have
Oh
last
yes,
statement,
yes.
like, or maybe a statement to conclude the podcast?
Um, I've got some interesting new product news.
Okay.
So IGEL has just launched a new tool called the UD Starter.
Okay.
Um, and you can download that from igel.com. And you'll know the UD Pockets,
Yes.
which is the only piece of hardware that IGEL make. I'm just trying to see if I've got one around me, and I don't have one. So normally what you have to do with the UD Pocket is you usually plug that into your USB drive, and then you have to hit F12 to get into the boot menu, so that then you can boot to a UD Pocket. Now, me and you, Indrajeet, we're quite techie, so that's quite a normal thing for us, right? We get what a boot menu is and how to enter the BIOS, right? But
Yeah.
for end users, that's quite an ask. Okay,
Yeah.
if your average end user is going to struggle with that, I'd argue. So the UD Starter is a piece of software that you can install on your Windows OS,
Okay.
and basically you say, I want to boot to my IGEL. And you can click that, and then you put your UD Pocket in, and you reboot your Windows device, and then it will boot straight to the UD Pocket without the end user having to enter the BIOS or change the boot order. Very, very clever little piece of software. There is a word of caution. In the version that we've just released, you cannot use it with BitLocker.
Okay.
So if you have a BitLocker enabled drive, you'll need to turn off BitLocker first. We will support BitLocker further down the road. That's on the roadmap. But right now, today, you need to decrypt your BitLocker, which I know might not be great for a lot of customers, but at least you can start testing. And what that would allow your end users to do is have their UD pocket. So we have that use case whereby maybe I want to use IGEL for my corporate apps and I want to use Windows for my personal apps. So with the UD starter, the user can select whether they want to go into Windows or they go into IGEL, they select it, hit reboot, and it will boot straight to the UD pocket. You can also configure it to say, always start my UD pocket if present. So that's the setting that I've been testing with. And basically what that means is if my UD pocket is already in my laptop, every time I reboot, it'll go straight into IGEL. And if it's not present, then it'll go into Windows. You can also change it so it always boots into Windows. But yeah, that's the mode I mean. So if I reboot, I put my UD pocket in, it'll go straight to my IGEL. Yeah, really nice little feature I think we've released there. I'm looking forward to seeing the development on that, particularly around BitLocker support. But yeah, I was testing it over the last couple of days, and hey, yeah, you avoid that whole, F12, F1 trying to mess about with the boot menu. Just literally a nice little agent sits in the system tray, and you're good to go. So yeah, get everybody to test that. That's a nice little feature you might want to consider for your end users.
Yeah, and it is actually before concluding, you had actually given a very good news for our listeners. For us, right? Like very soon, like even you'll able to see this
We
video.
maybe should have started with that. But then again, they've got to listen to the amazing security conversation first. So this is the little treat at the end.
Yes, yeah. So because even I know, because I'm a UD Pocket user, I use my UD Pocket. So for our listeners, like when you're able to see this video, this is basically
the
the
one.
small, tiny USB drive. And as John perfectly mentioned, right, it was kind of for IT administrators or like tech-savvy guys, it was kind of an easy thing to change the boot order and like boot from that particular USB drive. But with this new solution or like new product which John mentioned, UD Starter, it is now very much flexible for you, all of you, right? You have to just select your preference when the device is like when the UD Pocket is connected in the device, boot your laptop or like your device with IGEL, and it is like just one click, right? And you're good to go and work in IGEL.
It is really interesting because we are starting to see that can I dual boot IGEL OS with Windows at the same time, which isn't a use case that we can support right now today, primarily down to BitLocker being that problem. So I think this perfectly answers that use case. I want to dual boot between Windows and IGEL OS, right? So I want you to give that a go, Indrajeet. Make sure you decrypt your BitLocker first on your laptop. Give that a go, and let's talk about it next time and see how you found it.
Sure, let's try that. Surely, let's try. Okay, I think it was good, and I think before concluding, you have even given this good news to all our listeners. And I think with this, like, let's conclude today's episode, and let's catch up maybe next week with something new for our listeners, and like we'll try to educate or like we'll try to pass on some new updates or like new information about IGEL to our listeners.
There's lots going on at the moment, so I look forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks for your time, and looking forward to meet you soon.
You too. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.